Hi, Keith Livingston here with Healthy Intelligent Training. This morning I'm talking to Benita Willis, great Australian world cross country champion from 2004, correct?
Yep.
Yep, yep.
Hey,
Okay, good morning, Benita. Tell us
hey, Keith,
about,
how you going?
oh, good. Tell us about your early days in the sport, how you wandered into the sport from hockey.
Yeah, so I grew up in a small country town in North Queensland called Mackay, and I guess team sports were really big in Mackay. And I played heaps of team sports, netball, hockey. I'd played backyard cricket with my brothers. We lived on the beach, so we'd be down the beach all the time. And hockey was probably a big passion of mine. And I was in three Australian teams from year 10, and QAS in year 10, 11, and 12. And when I was in year 12 in '96, I did a tour of South Africa, a Three Nations tour on the Australian hockey team, underage hockey team. And I enjoyed hockey. I guess I enjoyed the team aspect, and I hated losing, but at the same time, I think it was a really good thing for me to do because it teaches you to lose. It teaches you teamwork and kind of the importance of everyone doing their job for the team. I loved hockey, and I ended up, making the Australian squad for Sydney Olympics quite a few years out. I got a scholarship with the ALS in Canberra in '97 after I finished high school when I was 17, and I moved to Canberra. And that was when I played A grade hockey for Australian National University in my first year living in Canberra. And we won the premiership, and that was like my first A grade like club premiership because I didn't win any in Mackay. And yeah, I really enjoyed it, but I got quite a bad injury at the end of that year, and that was my first year. So when I was first moved to camp, that was my first year training a bit harder as a runner, and still training a lot as a hockey player. So I think I just had to had to give, and I decided to just focus on the running and see how much better I could be at running. And I loved running. I used to run a lot on the beach with my dad growing up, and I did win quite a few national titles. Runner. And it's funny because I went to the nationals when I was in year 5 and I got a silver medal in the 800. So when I was 10, and the only reason why I went is because mum thought I'd never make it again. So she's like, "Oh, you should go in case you don't ever make it again." And things like that. Like I didn't train that hard, but I could still make state teams for athletics and win national titles for athletics. And I only used to train kind of when hockey season was finished. So I used to train for running probably between about September to December each year. And then hockey was pretty much the rest of the year. So I'd say that my upbringing was more centered around hockey and all the rep teams I was in and all the hockey training I had. And I enjoyed it though. And running was just kind of something I did that helped me get fit for hockey, but not something that I didn't particularly really enjoy it that much. Like I didn't like the pressure. And so I kind of stopped doing all the competitions for quite a few years. I think it's really important that when you're young to focus on team sports and not put too much pressure on yourself in those individual sports. And I was just lucky that I had that sort of upbringing.
Yeah, very interesting. Of course, in hockey, you do an awful lot of short, fast sprints and recoveries. That's all hockey is, basically. Um, so that would have done you a lot of good, I suppose, in terms of your athletic development. What was your main event where you knew you could make it in athletics to the very top?
I went to so Sydney Olympics was the first Australian team I made in athletics, and it just happened to be an Olympic team. I never really went to underage. I went to the World Juniors in '98, but Sydney Olympics was my first senior team, and I was in the 5,000 meters, and I won our trial. I was kind of training for the 1,500, so I thought, a lot of girls had the qualifier, and I came fourth in the trial, so I just thought I'll just go in the 5K. And I think it was 7 girls in the 5K had the time, and I just kind of sat and kicked in the race and won the race. And when I competed at the Olympics, I almost made the final. And but I remember like after the Olympics finished, I didn't really come away thinking I can be really good at this event. And I think I just put a lot of pressure on myself. Like I did a PB in the Olympic trial to win the race, and then I did a PB in my heat in the Olympics to almost make the final. So it wasn't like I didn't perform as well as I could. I was only like 21, I think. But I think I just put so much pressure on myself to be better. And it wasn't until like I went to the Worlds in 2001 and the World Cross Country in 2001, and they were in Ostend in Belgium, and that was like the World Indoors. World Cross Country was in Ostend, World Indoors was in Lisbon, I think, and I came sixth in the World Indoors at the 3K, and that was when I thought like I can be quite good in the world stage. Like before then, I wasn't like I never had a lot of confidence in what I could do against the best in the world because I always thought I was so far away from it. But coming sixth at the World Indoors, that was a big breakthrough. I ran 8:42. It was a big PB and a national record. But I just never thought I could do anything like that. And the girls in front of me were big names in the sport and very well known. And I think that gave me a lot of confidence going into my first World Cross Country, which was in Ostend in Belgium, like a few weeks later. And in that race, I also came sixth in the 4K. So I think coming away from that World Cross Country in particular, and the World Indoors, but particularly that cross country, I always loved cross country, and I think that was probably like cross country was something that I always knew I was going to do well. Even if I'd come off an injury or every year I ran, I always ran as well as I could in the race. Like I had many races in my career where I probably finished the race not running as well as I could have probably run for whatever reason. But for cross country and world cross country, I always ran as well as I could. And I was still very young. It was my first world cross country I'd ever been to. And I think um, I loved cross country and I loved getting out hard. And Ostend, there was sections that were kind of mud up to your knees, and I remember I was in the 4K, and the 8K was on the first day, and I remember some of the girls from the 8K. Someone told me just to make sure when you go out, you're not in the first 20. Basically saying don't go out too fast. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I've just run 8:42 at indoors, and I'm going to go out as fast as I can. And so I think I remember standing at the start line. I was the only Australian in the race, and my leg was kind of on the rope when they pulled it across after the gun went, and I got a bit of rope burn, which I didn't realize until I finished. But I was leading after the first few hundred meters, so it was like a really long straight start on a race course, and I ran really well considering I'd never been to the World Cross Country before, and but I always got out hard in those events, and I think I always knew I could run really well at cross country, even if I was coming off an injury. I always performed as well as I could. Yeah, and going, obviously I won in 2004, but there were a lot of years where, yeah, I was very consistently running between fourth and eighth. I had a lot of times where I was in the top eight. And even in Edinburgh in 2008, I remember I had a bad injury, and I was only running a few weeks before the Australian trial, and I think I came fifth in the trial, and the selectors were umming and ahhing with the AA whether or not to select me. But when I went to Edinburgh, I'd improved a lot even in a few weeks, or it might have been a month or something, and came 11th. And I knew that was the best I could do on the day. And we got a team medal in Edinburgh as well. So I was really fortunate to be part of that team, but also just backing my ability at cross country. And I probably the best courses for me were always if the weather was like bad, like raining and windy, if it was muddy, and if the course is really hilly. So I was probably better compared to the Africans in that sort of weather, because the Africans love the hot weather on those flat, fast courses. So I think the course has got to be a bit in my favour as well. But certainly, I was always in really good shape in many of the World Cross Countries I did, but ran up to the level that I knew I could, and which was huge because sometimes on the track and on the road, I didn't probably run as well as I should some race, but cross country I always ran as well as I should have.
When you ran your breakthrough race or your first World Cross Country race, what was the reaction amongst team management or teammates?
Oh, like everyone was really excited. I think, some people were, couldn't believe that that Australia had won a world cross country. Fantastic, because Steve Monaghetti was our was running and our team captain, and I mean everyone was so pumped, and it was something that like I didn't I didn't know if I could win, but I got close to getting a medal the year before in Lausanne, and I was going to get. I felt like I was going to come third until probably the last 50 meters, and then I could see two shadows coming up either side of me, and I just couldn't go any faster, and I came fifth. That race kind of was my mind for the rest of 2003. And I had some very big results on the track in 2003, and my first medal at a world champs in the half marathon. So I think that helped get some really good performances. But going into World Cross in 2004, like I knew I was in good shape. Like I'd beaten Dorada Tulu in a race only a few months before, and that was in Japan. And she was kind of, I warmed down with her, and she was asking me what race I was doing at World Cross, and I told her I was doing the 4K, and she was like, oh, that's good because I'm doing the. I told her I was doing the 8K, sorry, and she was like excited because she was like, oh, that's good because I'm doing the 4K. So she didn't want to race me, and I thought, oh, like someone that's like Olympic champion doesn't want to race me at World Cross must think that I'm in pretty good shape. And I think, like, I never talked up things at press conferences or said I'm going to win or going to do this or that. But I think in my mind, I knew what I could do. But I always let like the performances do the talking, and I didn't really like to put extra pressure on myself. But when someone like Tulu says that to me, then that gave me a lot of confidence that I was in good shape. And when you go to those events, you've got to be there in the last lap, and that's what I had to do. I had to put myself in the position in the last lap to win the race. And some of those world cross countries, I lost a little bit of a little bit of ground in the kind of third quarter of the race, and let them get away a bit. And so in that world cross country, I was really determined to make sure that third quarter, so between 4 and 6K, I didn't get dropped. And if you watch the video, like I am looking like I'm going to get dropped, and so I had to run quite hard in that lap before I made my move in the last lap to go to the front. And I was actually leading with 1,500 meters to go. So it was the hardest race I ever did. World cross country is always hard because you're going hard from the start. Like as soon as the gun goes, you're going hard. Whereas a lot of races, you feel like you're relaxing a lot until the moves are made. But world cross country is so different. So hardest race I did, obviously great reward, but probably one of the biggest risks I took because I was leading with 1,500 to go, and we never even got a medal at it before. So it was a big thing. I don't think the commentators really talked about me before the race when we were on the line, and I think people knew I was going to be around about there, but probably didn't think I was going to win. Yeah.
Now that brings me to training. What's the or what was the type of training that you did best by?
I think for me, I liked I like hill sessions, like 3-minute reps on hills. I love the tempo runs, and I know earlier on in my career I probably didn't do enough tempo runs, and I know a lot of athletes these days they all into speed and not enough kind of running to train your heart, and not like, so tempo runs like stuff running at about half marathon pace or varying paces around within reps, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I think I liked like 1K reps, but I think my favorite thing was those longer tempo runs and hills. And I know, like leading up to that world cross country in 2004, and any world cross I did, I always trained at Falls Creek for anywhere from a month to 2 months. And I remember going up to Falls Creek when we used to go up there every sort of December or January, and doing Fitzy's Hut, and that's a bit like a tempo run. So it's kind of like easy jogging for the first 4K, and then uphill for a little bit, and then along one of the snow plains and back to where we parked. And that was about 70 minutes. So probably about 40 minutes of steady state running. And I really enjoyed that aspect of training. I did a lot of that sort of training in my career, and I think a lot of athletes these days probably do a lot of intensity, but maybe not as much of that sort of thing, just to maintain their fitness. And that always helped me stay fit. I always did those sort of tempo runs during the season over in Europe, and it always helped me maintain my fitness from the start of the season to world champs or whatever we were kind of focusing on a few months after we started racing. But I also like hill reps as well, and probably 3 minute hills were my favourite. But the shorter hills as well were fun. But 6 times 3 minute hills, it was a really good session, and we used to do that quite a lot in training and even in racing blocks as well. I think maintaining strength was really important, and probably because I like cross country so much, I always liked hills, and they were fun too. They were something a bit different than just always going to the track.
Yeah, so you got your speed from your strength.
Definitely say that my speed was from my strength, and I had quite good speed at the end of some of those really tough long races, but I never did anything like flat out running. It was all from that strength work, and I didn't lift heavy weights either. A lot of athletes nowadays, they do lift a lot, and I did a lot of body strengthening exercises and lifting light weights, but I think my strength really came from those running specific training sessions that I think really correlated well with what I needed in the race with the strength work.
Coaches, you started off your career at the Institute of Sport inadvertently through getting a bit injured or sick with hockey, and then you took up running. So who coached you at first?
Well, in high school, my high school coach was John Clancy, and he was our PE teacher at Mackay North State High. And he really got me into running a lot. Like, I really enjoyed running, but we trained a lot with the footy guys, with the rugby league guys. So I just really enjoyed doing stuff that wasn't traditional, like heaps of running training. But when I went to the AIS, I was really on a talent ID scholarship because hockey was really my main sport. But I got a scholarship to the AIS for running, and that was with Dick Telford, and that was really good at the AIS. And in those days, when you're on scholarship at the AIS, they had all the scholarship coaches, and Dick was the coach for track and field for distance running, and we had a really good group, and it was a really fun atmosphere, and I really enjoyed it, and that really helped me develop my career, because before I went to the AIS, I never like, my long run was like 20 minutes. I never did proper training, so I never really did that structured training of a session on particular days, and I only used to race for the end of the year each year when I was at school, so I just did all the school sports sort of running. So going from that to the AIS was a really big step, and certainly change. It was hard because I did play hockey the first year I was at the AIS as well, and I played for ANU, and we won a premiership as well, which was pretty cool. So I really enjoyed that progression, but certainly I found it quite hard the first few years because I got my first injury, and I never really thought people would get injured, but it's just a part of the sport, and you're training so hard that you're kind of on that fine line of being injury free or maybe slightly going over, and that's when you get injured. And I don't know any elite athletes that have never been injured, but when you're young, you kind of just think, oh, like, how can this happen? But yeah, I got over that and improved a lot over at the AIS. And then later on in my career, I started. I got coached by Nick Bideau in the Melbourne Track Club, which is a very successful group and still going really well these days. And improved heaps. That's when I won the World Cross Country and broke a lot of Australian records. And I found that the group was really good, and really enjoyed it. And that was for quite a lot of my career. And then I lived over in America for a little while as well, and trained with Brad Hudson's group over there. And that was really good to train with the group. And I just got kind of sick of living between Melbourne and London, so I just thought, I'm just going to go and live in Boulder for a while in Colorado, and try to make one more Olympics. So that's really why I went over to America. I didn't really race much from about 2008 to 2012, and had a lot of things going on in my life. Had a few injuries, but my father passed away, unfortunately, as well, and a few other personal things. And so I didn't really race that much in that period of time. And I think I enjoyed living in Boulder because I wasn't traveling around as much. And I just had, I made some really good friends there, and enjoyed my training there. So, but I think a lot of my career, I kind of, although I had a coach, I wasn't always where the coach was. So you learn how to train properly, just with people that you're training with. You don't need someone there all the time. And I was very independent, knew what I was doing, and had the motivation. So I think that was a big key to my success, as well as obviously, having the plan to follow. but I was very, very much motivated to do what I needed to do, and yeah, and enjoy it. And I think that was the key. Like, you have to enjoy what you do. And I probably retired quite young. I think I was about 32 or 33. But I just didn't enjoy it. I just wanted to do something else, and I had other interests and other things I wanted to do. So I kind of think that you can't keep pushing in a sport like distance running when you're not really that 100% committed, and that's why I just stopped running and did something else.
How important was the support of a group training structure? Are you saying that it really helps you with your training?
Yeah, I think a group training atmosphere is really good. Even if you just have one training partner, you don't need like 20 people. I think you just need to have supportive people around you. But I think it is really important. Like, some of my best runs were when I was training with one other person that wasn't necessarily someone I was doing sessions with, but warming up together and doing similar sessions, but we were at different levels. And and I was racing really well. So for me, I think it's about having, at least one person to train with, but also enjoying it as well. And yeah, but I think, yeah, group training is really good. It's good to have that atmosphere, but I also got very good results from just training with one other person as well.
You mentioned before that you trained with Nick Beddoes' Melbourne Track Club. So, from what I understand, Nick bases his training a lot on the training of John Walker and Arch Jelly. Uh, basically the New Zealand system of training, where we used to do a lot of base work, steady work, um, maybe a bit of elevated heart rate work, uh, strictly within zones.
I think we did a lot of heart rate sessions, so sessions at different heart rates, and I liked them because kind of it just depended on how you were feeling, and not going too hard. And I think a lot of people have a problem with probably going too hard all the time in training, especially with tempo runs. So I think that was a bit different. And yeah, I think things like just making sure you're always staying fit between races, and not missing that tempo type work. Was really important. And it was really hard training. And with the other training that I did, it was quite similar with the principles. But I think, yeah, that heart rate training was something that I'd never done before, for sure.
And how did you manage that? You obviously would have had a heart rate monitor on.
Yeah, and I knew I knew the heart rates to go, and my heart rate was not like super high for my max heart rate, so I think my heart rates were a bit lower. But it was just one of those things where you kind of knew what like heart rate to go at, and I never looked at paces. So I know a lot of people these days, they're always about paces and how far they've run in certain time, but I always used to do a lot of running by time and by heart rate and by feel, not by go at this certain pace. And I think that's a good thing to stay away from, because you are always feeling different. Like, sometimes you're a bit more tired than other days, and it's really easy to get in a hole if you're pushing too hard all the time. So I think, to hold you back, if anything, heart rate training is really good.
Lorraine Moller remembers you from Boulder. She's really big on intuiting, um, listening to your body, and forgetting the heart rate monitor if you can. So, uh, what you're saying is that you ran best if you didn't become a slave to the little machine.
Yeah, and I think with your heart rate too, like, sometimes if you're a little bit tired, your heart rate's a bit elevated. So if you're running at certain heart rates, you're actually running a bit slower if you're a bit tired, and running a bit faster if you're feeling fine. So yeah, but I think listening to your body is a huge thing that you've really got to do. But I found when I was a younger athlete, I didn't really do that very well, and I think as I got better as I got older, and that's one thing that, as a coach now, it's so important for people to kind of listen to their feelings and not be kind of a slave to the Garmins and the paces and all that stuff. But it's a very hard thing to explain to people. But yeah, I totally agree. And it's so important to know when you're a bit tired and to back off. But motivated and driven people are usually distance runners, and it's in their kind of DNA to just push really hard all the time. So trying to get people to slow down and kind of listen to their body, and learn that it's not always about as hard as you can go, or when you're feeling pretty crappy, it's not about pushing through it all the time. Like, sometimes you do have to. I think you've got to learn to listen to your body and back off when you need to, but it's a very hard skill. And I think I got a lot better at it probably after I was about 30, but I only really competed a few years after that. So I think I've learned a lot more about it since I've stopped running. But yeah, when I was kind of in my early 20s, I was hopeless at that. Using a heart rate helped me because it did slow me down because I'm kind of not going over a certain heart rate. So it did really help me with that.
And tell me a bit more about the group you coached there on the coast.
Yeah, yeah. So it's called Lace Up Running, and I have been coaching for a long time. I started a coaching business in Boulder for the last couple of years. I lived there, and I still coach a few people from America that I was coaching then. And my group over here, it's online coaching as well as a little group, and it's people of all ages. Like I love coaching the marathon because I think the marathon is one of those events that like it's like a personal challenge against how well you can do, and it's all about mixing in the training that's right for each person, and getting that result on the day. But it's not about giving everyone the same training. Everyone's different. Like as people get a bit older, some people need a bit more cross training, a bit more strength work to combine with their running. But then some of the younger people, like I've got some young ones that are under 25 that do shorter races on the track, so I coach them a lot differently to people that are a bit older. So it is exciting, and I think it's great for people that are even in their 40s or 50s that are running their best times ever. Although we haven't, this year's been a tough year. We haven't really had any races much, but we do have a race this weekend. I've got quite a lot of people running in the Gold Coast Running Festival, which is a road race here. There should be about 2,000 people in the event. So we're lucky in Queensland that we've still got races happening now, but they're all kind of smaller races and trail races. My partner Anthony and I look after everyone, and we're really enjoying it. So we're having a few little events coming up as well soon. So yeah, it's just one of those things that it's really important for people to enjoy what they're doing and meeting other people. And I think you make lifelong friends from people that you meet in these sort of groups. And yeah, that's what we're kind of trying to do with our group here on the Gold Coast. And it has been a hard year for a lot of people. So running's a way for people to kind of forget about the tough year and just enjoy the moment and enjoy getting fit and having a program. Individualized programs, I think, are huge, and that's what we do for each person that we coach.
That's Lace Up Running.
Yeah, Lace Up Running.
Most satisfying races of your career?
World cross country, and but going back before that, would have been the world indoors in 2001 when I came sixth. Was probably one of the first races that I actually thought, oh, I could be kind of world class here. Like I didn't, after the Sydney Olympics, I didn't think I was. I almost made the final, but I just wasn't quite there. And then that next year, when I came sixth at the world indoors and sixth at the world cross country, it gave me a lot of confidence going on to the next few years. But world half marathon in 2003, I came third, and it was my first half marathon in Portugal, and I wasn't in the bronze medal position until about 100 meters to go. And that race was won by Paula Radcliffe, and Bahana Diri from Ethiopia came second. So it was a very fast race. And it was one of those races that I knew I was running fast at 10K, but I wasn't exactly sure how I'd go at the half marathon. And that kind of gave me a lot of confidence that I could really compete at the highest level. And going into World Cross Country the next year gave me confidence that I could be right up there. So winning World Cross Country definitely was a highlight. I think the World Cross Country in Edinburgh in 2008 was another one that I'd been injured for quite a few months before it, and I only came fifth at our trial. So I just made our Australian team, and Athletics Australia weren't even going to pick me in the team, and they did pick me, and I ended up going within a few weeks, going from fifth in our team to 11th in the world, and we got a bronze medal, as well. So that was a big satisfying one because I knew that the lead up wasn't perfect; it was far from perfect, but on that particular day, I ran as well as I could have run given the build up. So that was a satisfying run. And I think when I look back at results, it's those sort of races that you're really satisfied with, as well as the big ones, that you kind of think, I did as well as I could have possibly done. And it isn't about always winning or getting medals, but it's kind of how well you can do on the day. And if you finish the race, I finished that race thinking, I ran so well there. And I know my dad was very sick at that stage as well, and he passed away just before the Olympics of that year. So personally, it was a very hard year as well. And so, yeah, I was very, very happy about that one.
Or toughest competitors, or people you respect the most in your running career?
I remember racing Jo Pavey of Great Britain a lot, and she was really tough. Like I raced her at Sydney Olympics, and then she went on to win European gold medals and a lot of other big titles. But she was tough. People like Kim Smith. Whenever I raced her, she always went straight to the front, and she was so strong from the gun. And I hated like leading races, and I wasn't one of those people that kind of went out as hard as I could. Um, she was one of those people that, yeah, just kind of went to the front, and you just never you like, I know she often beat me. I don't think I beat her that much when I raced her, so I found her really tough. There's so many times in my career that you race people and you face people, and you kind of not really sure how you're going to go, but she was one of them.
She's the Kiwi, right? Yeah, so she was very good on the US collegiate scene, I think.
She's run really fast times over 5K and 10K, and the marathon as well. Yeah. I follow all sports. So I think with track and field, it wouldn't be anyone kind of in particular. People that come back from setbacks and tough times, I admire, because I know how hard it is once you're kind of on top of your sport, to come back after kind of being down and out. There's so many people that I admire, but I still kind of think that it's about people in any job. Like it's sports. People know people within sport, but I admire people from all walks of life with coming back and being resilient. So someone like Eloise Wellings, she was a brilliant junior. I'm a few years older than her, but I roomed with her at the World Juniors in 1998, and I was kind of the oldest age, and she was about 15, and she just almost made our Sydney Olympic team, and then she didn't make the Olympics again till London. And she's come on to run so well, and Rio were brilliant runs over the 5K and 10K. And she's still training, and she's still competing, and she's had her second baby last year. So she's one person that I admire, but not from when I was younger, because obviously I'm a bit older than her. But admired her career and how she's fought in the battles that she's fought as well with her career to get to be where she is now.
And advice to a young Benita from an older Benita?
The biggest advice I always would say is make sure you enjoy it, and then like it's such a hard, this sort of sport, running is such a hard sport, and it's a very individual sport. But if you're not kind of enjoying what you're doing and enjoying the process, I think it's a very hard thing to progress through the years. And I certainly, I enjoyed it, but I did put a lot of pressure on myself, even when I was kind of 21. And I think, you've got to put a bit of pressure on yourself, but putting too much pressure on yourself is a problem as well. So I would say enjoy it, be patient, because a lot of my best years were kind of 25 to about 30, which is quite young. Like Sinead Diver, she's running awesome, and she's early 40s now and still running awesome. She's in London Marathon coming up in a few months. So you've got to enjoy it, enjoy the process, but just make sure that you have patience in your development, and especially if you're young. And don't kind of rush things, but don't put pressure on yourself. And also, like when you have really good runs, just make sure you celebrate them and enjoy that moment. And I think in my career, I had a brilliant run, but I was always looking for the next thing, rather than kind of taking a step back and going, wow, that was a PB, or that was a medal at a world champs, or and celebrating that as something to really kind of enjoy, and then look forward to the next thing.
Yeah. Thanks, Benita.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for the chat.
Okay.